Thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate the time you're taking to get to know the Craftom team and platform a bit better. We've been working with the Craftom team through the majority of 2023 and are really excited to have this opportunity for our investors and to get to know the team better. And I can't think of a better example than Craftom. I think that the problem in the market is one that I personally relate to. And I think that a lot of folks on the call, if not all folks on the call, will relate to as well. And that is if one, you have ever been outfitting a new employee, or two, been a new employee that is being outfitted with technology assets and IT, as well as gone to, for example, a trade show that's required all of the merchandise as a vendor, setting up your table, so on and so forth, so that you can meet new people and replace new business. I think with that, these guys saw that the problem in that market was it takes, on average, between the different merchandise companies for the trade shows and the tablecloths and backdrops, as well as in the technology side with new employees, the computers, monitors, cables, so on and so forth. You're talking 45 plus average vendors between those two, which means 45 different purchases, payments, invoices, and then 45 different boxes that are arriving at different times that you have to consolidate and turn into either a desk or a table. And so how these guys decided to solve that problem was build Craftom. And Craftom is a software-powered marketplace that allows businesses, either for IT or for marketing, to take all of those different vendors, consolidate them into a single platform to where someone can take all of the products that they need and with a single click purchase them, use the software power behind the platform into really utilizing the million plus products that they have in the marketplace and finding the exact right ones for what they need. And then having those products arrive in a single box, in the case of new employees, with instructions on how to properly set everything up and a very easy way. And in the case of trade shows, everything ready to go without all the hassle of the different vendors and boxes. So that's what got us really excited about their solution to the problem in the market. The revenue model got us very excited as well. These guys very intelligently put 1 to 3 year contracts for the businesses that they're doing business with. And these contracts fund in advance. So if they write a 1 year contract, either 12 months or quarterly, these contracts are being funded in advance, cash was received, and then as the businesses are purchasing on the platform, they're drawing down on that pre-funded contract. So as a creditworthy company goes, getting that cash ahead of time is, there are worse cash conversion cycles. So from there, you can imagine that with the customer backlog that they've been able to generate, they currently have $4 million of contracted backlog between 1 and 3 years, and the vast majority of which has been funded in advance. So again, as a credit investor, this got us very excited. As we got to know the team and the product, we got even more excited than when we met the folks, which doesn't always happen. And from that, we decided to put a senior secured note with a 14% interest rate, 2 year fully amortizing, with potentially more financings to do in the future. Right now, we have about 75% of the note committed. So of the 1.5 million total note, around 500,000 remaining. And we wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to hear the story from the team here as we close the last few investment dollars. So Caleb, why don't you talk to us about where you started and how you got to the business you built today?
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. Great to meet you, everybody. I'm Caleb Musser, founder and CEO of Craftom. I started my first company when I was 25, back in 2015. I had been the director of sales for a NASCAR team. And the insight for that company was similar to what Josh was describing. when I would want to put together a package for the folks that we were inviting to the races, I'd have a bunch of stuff in my office, and I'd be the one, packing it up, trying to get something ready before, a CMO and his team were coming to see us. So I left the team to start the company, and we manufactured very high-end premium products, and did all that consolidation for big brands and professional sports teams. So I had over 40 NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA clients, as well as big brands like Toyota, Siemens, Oracle, and others. So did that for about 5 years. It was a great lifestyle business. And at the end of 2019, I was starting to look for opportunities to build more of a tech company, which is, obviously very exciting, higher growth, higher potential for, just generational wealth, et cetera. And so I started looking for problems. And one of the things I had noticed, like Josh spoke to while working with these big brands, was just how many vendors they used to buy products from throughout the years. It was, there was one NFL team that used over 50 vendors just to buy branded merchandise, which seemed crazy because, it's all tchotchkes and swag. There should be one place to buy that, was my thought. So I launched the company in beginning of 2020. It was a great time to start a new business, and it frankly did not do very well the first couple months. But in March of 2020, the country went remote on March 12th. And just from my background in supply chain, manufacturing, and logistics, I knew that the legacy vendors that I had worked with weren't going to be able to figure out how do we ship, 500 kitted products to 500 different remote workers. Because, for the past 50 years, they've always shipped a bunch of stuff to like one office location. So I built a no-code solution over the weekend that would allow you to simply capture a shipping address securely, so you can enter your home address and pick a product. Launched it on Monday, the 14th, and within a week or two, we signed up Hitachi as our first client. And in 2020, we had this, from that point on, this crazy scale-up period. We did over $1 million in bookings with mostly Silicon Valley-based B2B software companies such as Confluent, Proofpoint, Zscaler, Workday, many big brands that you'd be familiar with. And around the fall of that time, we've got all the craziness of COVID and all this business coming to us. I met Glenn, and I went to him and was like, hey man, like I need help. Just managing the finances for this. So Glenn, I'll let you do your introduction.
Yes, I'm Glenn Chambers, the CFO of Craftom, and Caleb and I were connected just a few months after Craftom started. And I had worked for decades actually in Big Four accounting firm, CFO, CEO roles. And so when Caleb and I met, I could see this sort of polar opposite skill sets, but very much aligned with values and the big rocks, which is important to me. And we began to discuss how we could work together. And I was immediately intrigued with the model of this. And being a financial person, the fact that these enterprise level companies would strike a check up front just was really unheard of to me at that point. And over the next 3 years, a lot of hard work, because really the first round of funding we had was with Carofin this past year. And with the vision in place, tenacity, it's been interesting and a lot of fun to watch where we've come, but more importantly, to see where we can go with the proper funding in place and what the future may hold.
Yeah, and I'll comment on something that Glenn mentioned and I've experienced personally. Caleb does an excellent job of leading the strategy with just an incredible growth mindset. He is great at looking at opportunities and seeing the potential and the vision. Glenn does an excellent job of providing the support and backdrop of realistic financial expectations and what's recorded or required to meet those financial expectations, and making sure that there is financial oversight, and planning and looking down the fairway to make sure that the company operates smoothly, as it has thus far. So very different skill sets, but extremely complementary, and frankly a bit rare for a company this stage. Another reason why we're so excited to work with them.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it, Glenn. So at the end of 2020, going into 2021, we were doing a lot of branded merchandise, but as in-person and hybrid started to develop, a lot of other product categories, like we talked about, started showing up again. So for events, there's things like conference banners and tablecloths and all these different things that started being more prevalent, that we started building into the marketplace. And something that was really interesting was the marketing teams that we were working with came to us and said, hey, you might want to talk to HR because they're having this exact same problem that we are, but instead of it being for customers, it's for employees. So we started working with the HR teams who were buying branded merchandise and all kinds of different things for their employee events and campaigns, recognition milestones, etc. And as we started working with HR, they also said something really interesting, which was, you might want to talk with IT because they are having this exact same problem we are, trying to figure out fulfillment for remote, hybrid, and on-site recipients. But instead of being with branded stuff, it's with laptops and accessories. So we built the IT product at the end of 2021, released it in early 2022. We signed up our first customer in the summer of 2022. And the pain point that the VP of IT had was he had 9 technicians that were spending 10 to 30 hours a week each, just setting up, shipping, and trying to retrieve laptops. And the solution we prevented him with was, hey, instead of those technicians spending that time, you can have one person monitoring the Craftom dashboard and manage all buying, warehousing, imaging, which is setting up the computers, shipping, and device retrieval. Because it's a really big logistical headache to try to retrieve laptops. What you got to do is $2,000 to $3,000 machine when someone leaves the company. That's all automated, and that was a really good value prop to him. He signed up with an initial pilot of about $75,000 in bookings, and at the end of the year, he signed a $1.8 million total booking value contract. And in 2022, we finished at about $2 million in revenue, and in 2023, we'll finish at close to 3.1 million in revenue. And in terms of where we're going, we started with the physical goods, which was the biggest pain point. The buying, the sourcing, the buying, the warehousing, shipping, and we've done a really, really good job with that. In addition to the physical goods, we're now being asked to, hey, you're already selling us the computers, can you also resell us software? Because we're effectively a reseller, whether it's physical goods, any product category. If you want to use the Amazon analogy, that's pretty close. You've got all those different product categories, and they have their relationships with their suppliers. They put a markup on the products. And so we've applied that same approach with physical goods now to software. So, we're already selling the MacBooks. It's pretty easy to start selling Adobe licenses and Google and Zscaler and others. So that's a really exciting place to be, to become this comprehensive B2B, we call it a B2B buying platform, one place for marketing, IT, and HR teams to go to streamline sourcing, buying, and fulfillment versus using many different vendors and having to handle a lot of the just management and logistics itself. So that's where we came from. That's where we've been. Really appreciate you watching, and we are really excited about the opportunity to partner with you.
if I was to ask how you achieved the growth that you guys have achieved over the last 3 years, 4 years, how would you describe that, Glenn?
I think the growth has been just a consistent effort by Caleb, who's wearing many hats in the business, but the discipline following a certain number of leads and um, providing a solution that people really need. And one of the determining factors they need is the fact that they put money up front for it. And I think it's mainly this persistence with a very lean staff that's gotten us to where we are.
That makes complete sense. And as of now, Caleb has been the main sales asset, correct?
He has primarily, and being a business owner, wearing a lot of different hats, it's remarkable to see what he's produced revenue-wise in addition to creating and running the business.
Right, exactly. Hence why we're here. We want to provide some capital to capitalize a sales team alongside Caleb. He will probably always be the best salesman for the company, but ultimately, we need him freed up to do other strategic things and not just on the phones all day, albeit very successfully performed thus far. And we're seeing, in our projections that I think you'll agree, spent quite a bit of time on. We see a lot of revenue growth in 2024. That is, from my understanding, one, from having more sales assets. It's rarely a straight line, up and to the right. Hiring a sales team is an iterative process. But also you can attribute a lot of that to just contracted backlog currently, correct?
Correct. And the balance sheet itself has unearned revenue, which will be recognized. We've already billed it upwards of $4 million. So if you compare 23, you look at the 4 million and the increased sales effort, the 9 million is not really a stretch.
Right. And so assuming two things: one, that your current clients don't increase their contract value next year, which consistently happens as they get to know you and really begin to understand the value proposition. And two, you don't close any new accounts, which again would be hard to believe because you've done so well with such a thin sales staff, and we're here to grow that. Then you have $4 million already sewed up. So again, I 100% agree with you. Projections are a tricky thing, but seeing you get to the 9.5 next year, I don't think is a stretch.
No.
If you could kind of talk about the gross margins and what those consist of, and maybe spend some time on why we're seeing this go from 48 in 2022 to what we saw 39% in 2023 and really holding there in future years.
Yeah, so there are two streams in this business, the merch side, swag, and the IT side. And for the first 2 to 3 years, through most of 22, primarily we were a merch business. And the merch inherently has margins in the mid to upper 40s. And the IT side, because you're dealing with hardware, a mixture of Apple products and Dell products, you're going to have an inherently lower margin of around 20% on the equipment. And we make additional money on that by our fulfillment. And we often can bring that 20% up to 30% with the fulfillment, which is a key selling point as these customers have a lot of staff dedicated to fulfilling, and we can do that much better, much more economically. So if you compare 22 to 23, 23 was the first year where IT became its own stream of revenue. And if you blend the mid to upper 40s with around 30, you get this upper 30s number. And while it's a lower gross margin, it allows you to have much higher top line as you bring the IT fully into the mix.
Yeah, that's great. And describe exactly what you mean by fulfillment.
Yes, so we will obviously procure the equipment, but then we provision, whether the laptops, whether it's Apple products or Dell, and we set everything up turnkey for the customer, send to the employee that's being onboarded, um, full package with white glove service, even throw in some swag to it so they open up their package. And so this fulfillment is really on the front side. Also, an important part of this is offboarding. And what we have found with customers, it's just the last thing that they want to deal with. And most customers tell us they get back less than half of their equipment. And with dedicated effort, we're sort of a neutral third party. We provide the shipping labels. We've been able to push that return to over 75%, which in itself really sells the deal to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for them, that's just, pure spin that they don't have to make, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And we're also, and another comment that I'll make is from having financed marketplace businesses in the past, I think this is a very healthy gross margin. In my experience, that typically lives in a 20 to 25% range. So if you guys are achieving, 40% gross margins on reselling products to businesses, that's a respectable business model for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. OpEx growth here is mostly sales staff. I believe we did a pretty detailed model. And as everyone watching knows, you can access this financial model and all the inputs that go into it through the due diligence room. If you can't, please reach out to Mina or myself. And really focusing on headcount for sales, engineering, and other operations, just to allow a business to grow at this rate. It requires that type of support, but mainly the sales staff we're seeing. And so with that OpEx growing, we're still seeing turning the corner into cash flow next year, which is very exciting. Again, over half of that revenue being already booked, and a lot of really interesting things in the pipeline as well. I won't set those expectations yet, but constantly having conversations with Caleb about very exciting businesses that he's on the brink of closing. Some potentially even by year end. So that cash flow is, is enough to begin servicing the debt through the 2-year note through 2025, and really excited to be a part of it.